Welcome to the Idaho Business Podcast, the only Idaho podcast focused on providing profits for Idaho people. If you love our state and love small business, you are in the right place. We interview local legends, learn business, and have way too much fun doing it. You're listening to the Idaho Business Podcast with your friend, host, and all-around great guy and owner of New Clean Commercial Cleaning, Spencer Ward.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Idaho Business Podcast. We are joined today with Tony Moon and Brett Bawden. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce your name, Brett. Is that correct, Bawden?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay.
Brett Bawden. Yep.
Awesome. These guys are business brokers. We're going to talk all about business buying and all the fun stuff. But before we get into them and their introductions, I need to say we're sponsored by Health West. Great organization, great healthcare organization. Google them where they're closest to you and give them a try. Bring your family, your friends, whoever you can think of, and give them a try. All right. So we got Brett Bawden here. You know, he grew up in Las Vegas, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Grew up in Las Vegas, born and raised.
Born and raised. And you've had quite the life in the banking loan processing world.
Absolutely.
So you know that side of things. Now you're going into helping people secure those loans to now buy businesses, which is going to be key.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I partnered with Tony, and we saw a need in the marketplace for some business brokers who have, I think, the expertise that we bring. Tony is I don't want to introduce Tony. I'll let him speak.
Yeah, I'll get to Tony here. Yeah.
But yeah, bringing the commercial banking background with me, I think really helps me to be able to look at businesses in a very unique way, and get right down to the crux of analyzing the value of the business, as well as what kind of financing is available for a business that we're looking at.
Beautiful. Okay, well, that's great. Let's get into Tony first, and then we'll get into all this fun stuff. So Tony, Pittsburgh, California, correct?
Yep.
Born and raised there?
Yep, pretty much.
Now lives in Rigby, Idaho. Has a real estate background.
Yep.
So this guy knows the art of the deal. He knows how to put a deal together. And that's going to be crucial as you're trying to sell. That's right. As you're trying to sell or buy businesses. And did I get anything wrong, guys?
Nope.
Okay. Perfect. Sometimes I do. Some people have to correct me here. Right on. Okay. So getting into, the business buying, the business brokering frame of mind here. If we have people listening, they're thinking, you know what? Maybe some baby boomers, or maybe not baby boomers. They're just like, you know what? I'm kind of getting ready to exit. I'd like to maybe try my hand at something different. What should they be looking at right now? Maybe if let's say they're 1 year to 2 years out from trying to make this exit.
Yeah, so I think there's really three key questions you should be asking yourself as a business owner when you're looking at, hey, I'm gonna get my business ready to sell. One is, are your results desirable? Second one is, can a buyer duplicate your results? And the third is, are your results documented, right? And if you have all three of those in order, then you're more than likely in a good position to sell your business.
Oh, I love that answer. I love that one. Speaking from experience, knowing from what I know now from buying a business, I told my partner, I said, next time we buy a business, I'm going in there and I'm going to follow around all their key people, and I'm going to build my own, SOPs around those people and put together what they do, how they affect the organization. So then I know where the gaps are. So I love that answer.
Yeah.
Tony, what about you?
The big thing that comes to me is money, right?
Yep.
What does your money look like? Are you showing the profits on a yearly basis for a few years that gives you the desirable number that you want to be able to sell your business for. Because if your numbers on a yearly basis don't show the desired sell amount that you're wanting, you better get that figured out.
I'm glad I have some backup here because they probably hear me all the time saying, "Hey, don't write everything off on your taxes, guys. Show some profit." They're probably thinking Spencer's crazy and he loves to pay Uncle Sam all of his money. But this is proof in the pudding, people. You got to show profit so you can show whoever's buying your future business that your business actually makes money, and it'll increase your exit.
Yeah.
This is great.
So can I give you give you, Spencer, and your listeners a golden tip? I call this the golden tip, right? When
Let's
we're
do
talking about that very thing. So let's just keep the numbers simple, right? So let's say you are trying to save $10,000 on your tax return, right? So you're like working with your CPA, and you're like, hey, let's stash away $10,000 somewhere so I don't have to pay taxes on that, right? Okay, so they find a way to put that somewhere, and now you're showing $10,000 less in your tax return and your profit. What's the tax rate on, or how much are you saving with that $10,000? You know, Spencer, what's the tax rate?
This is, I don't know the tax rate off the top of my head right now.
Well, what is that? Let's say it's 25%.
Okay.
Right? So you're saving $2,500.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you save $2,500 by hiding 10,000, right? But
Okay.
let's say now you're wanting to sell your business, right?
Yep.
Well, if you would have kept that $10,000 in your bottom line, and we were able to, depending on the performance of your company and the market that it's in and everything else, let's say we get you a 5 times multiplier,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's
Yep.
$50,000. So you just saved $2,500 and lost $50,000 if you were to sell your business. That's the difference. Now, that's $10,000. Think about $100,000.
Yep.
It's the same math applies, right? And we see
Exactly.
it all the time. I've seen businesses lose hundreds of thousands of dollars because they're trying to save their money on paying taxes, and it never works out well when you're trying to sell your business.
Yep. Yep. And it's interesting. I've seen even decent sized businesses intertwine personal and business expenses in their companies. Oh, this is prescriptions for my wife's healthcare. Oh, okay. Why is this coming out of the business account?
Right.
Why isn't it not coming out of your personal account? Oh, I'm trying to avoid some tax. Oh, wow. Okay. Like I don't understand how that works, but it's interesting how people, how their minds work, and their accountants really should help them to realize you're doing more, harm to yourself than good long term.
Yeah, and especially to the value of your business. So
Yeah.
and you never know, like you may be looking forward to selling your business in the next few years or even 5-10 years out, but things can happen, right? Where
That's
you
right.
may be forced to sell your business. And we've worked with people where they've either come down with a chronic illness, or we've seen death in the family, right? Or other things that have happened to business owners where they've been forced to sell much sooner than they were planning to.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't ready to sell, right? Their finances weren't in order. There were other issues with how they were operating their systems and things like that weren't ready to sell. And unfortunately, they weren't able to sell their business for what they could have if they were ready to sell. So we recommend that you always have your business ready to sell, right? And that's something that Tony and I focus on in terms of our advisory side is, how we want to help businesses always be ready to sell, right? That they know that at any time, if something came up or they changed their direction as to what they wanted to do or where they wanted to spend their time or whatever, that they'd be able to be ready to sell their business, in a short amount of time without losing value.
Exactly. And it's so sad too, because let's just take the baby boomers, for right now. I've heard a stat on average, the average baby boomer who own businesses have an average of a little over 200,000 put away for retirement. That means they have to sell their businesses to have some quality of life into or past retirement. And what a shame it would be if you can't do that, guys. So when you're going to sell your businesses, Brett, I'm sure you attest to this. People want to see at least 3 years back of clean books.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Showing profit.
That's correct. Yep. 3 years is ideal. 3 years is ideal. Yep.
Okay. And not just on the P&L. We're talking about tax returns here too, guys.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're talking about tax returns. Yeah.
That's right. I don't care what anyone can manufacture a P&L. Let's talk about the stuff that really matters and what banks are going to look at it, because because you're looking at people that are looking at big exits, for what is it, venture capitalists, VCs and that kind of stuff. They don't really get into the game until you're at least 2 to 5 million in revenue and above, right? So anything below that, traditional businesses, like mine, are going to go get financing from traditional lenders to get the financing for these businesses, and they have to bring their numbers to a financer. Brett has been an SBA loan officer for many years, before this, so he's seen, I'm sure, so many numbers that you probably laughed people out of the room at that point. They're like, "There's no way. I wouldn't give you $1 for this business."
Yeah. No, I have seen that. I've seen the good, bad, and ugly of tax returns and P&Ls, and yeah, it never works out, right? It doesn't make the job easy for anybody, and so having your financials in order, having them reported accurately, is really critical, right? And even if you weren't going with the traditional financial institution for lending or what have you, any buyer, right? Any buyer is going to want to see solid financials, right? And Spencer, you bought businesses, right? So you understand, like, as a buyer, you want to see a strong performing business, or why are you buying the business, right? So it's not just about the financial institution. It's also about the buyer, whether it's going to be a cash buyer or not. They're going to want to see financial performance. And cash buyers, trust me, they've got money, and they have money for a reason. And so they're very savvy. So they're going to look at your financials and be able to make a determination pretty quick as to whether or not they're going to use their cash on your business.
Well, and if you want to maximize your blue sky, right, your financials have to be in order, and they have to be clean, right? The messy financials, they're not going to pull the blue sky that people want, right? And if you don't know what blue sky is, that's basically what the value of your business can be at the growth rate that you're growing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to maximize that blue sky dollar, because there's good money there. But if your financials are a mess, you're not getting it.
That's right. I've talked a lot about going through your P&L because accountants' brains are all numbers and codes. Mm-hmm. In our brains as business owners, it's like, oh, what does that mean on the P&L? What does 3.984 this mean? That doesn't mean anything to me. But professional services means something to me, or office supplies mean something to me. So I tell everyone, go through your P&L with your bookkeeper and relabel stuff that makes sense to you as a business owner, and make your P&L just your monthly checkup. You're the doctor, and you're just doing your monthly checkup, pulling it month to month, making sure everything makes sense and percentages are within range, and that way it's clean. And then what you're looking at. People, I think that's where they get frustrated with their finances. They're like, I have no idea what I'm looking at when it comes to this P&L, because it's all dashes and zeros and ones. Looks like the Matrix over there.
Yeah.
It's not, it doesn't really lead to anything that's to make sense. So I don't think a lot of them realize you can't. You can relabel stuff and make it make sense to them. So make it
Absolutely.
clean, like Tony said. So
Yeah.
I love it.
So
What's the besides the numbers, I guess, what's the biggest mistake you see uh, business owners making?
trying to do it themselves.
Okay.
They think they know better, right? They think they can do it themselves. They don't understand having the mediator in the middle to maximize the dollars for the seller and helping the buyer understand the value of what the seller is selling.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely a two-parter here because it's going to be, it's important to have someone by your side, like a business broker like you guys. And if I didn't mention in the beginning, I forgot Peak Business Brokers and Advisors. That's what, Tony and Brett with the company they're with. We'll mention that again at the end. But at the same time, you need someone, an advocate with you there. But at the same time, as a business owner, you can't have that mentality of, oh, I've got to do everything myself because, we're Idahoans, we're strong, we're independent people. We have to be able to, rely on our team to be able to do those things that we know we can do, but we shouldn't. So,
Yeah.
no, that's key.
Yeah, if I can just touch a little bit more on that point,
Yeah.
Spencer, it's really difficult to run your business, right? Because you're running your business and also navigate the whole selling process of your business, right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of complexity that goes with selling your business, right? Everything from valuing your business to finding and vetting buyers, to structuring the deal, to preparing all your documentation that's necessary to show a potential buyer, negotiating the terms, managing the due diligence, right? And also, it's hard to remain objective because your business is your baby, right? And you've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that. And sometimes you feel like, well, my business should be really worth this very high dollar. And a buyer would come in, look at your financials and say, well, no, it's probably down here somewhere. And there's always a gap, and there can be a lot of emotions that can get wrapped up in that. So a broker or an intermediary can come in and really help navigate that much cleaner so that it's a better value for both parties, because that's really what it's about. It's value for the seller and the buyer, right?
That's right.
So one way I like to tell people about like why a broker, it's kind of like when you're buying a used car and you're not a mechanic, right? And you're not sure, like, is this car a good buy or whatever, it's always good to bring a mechanic along that can go through the whole car and then tell you, like, is it really worth this value or not, right? Now, that's a simple example. Selling a business is way more complex than that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of that sort of feel, to bring in an expert that's going to be able to be an intermediary between the buyer and seller and be able to maximize the value for both.
I think that's key. And then what you just said about the, you have buyers that come in, you as a seller, sometimes you might feel like you're getting lowballed. That's where you guys can come in and say, hey, well, this is what the market's showing for the multiples that are, these good businesses are exiting at. This is what the market's, pulling for. So the seller's way off base, for what you're showing for your business and this kind of stuff. So you can add some context to what you're trying to prove. So
yeah, and show them the why, because
exactly.
the question is, well, why is it only valued this, right, or this range? And we can break it down for them.
Yep, I love it. I love it. Well, let's get into a quick lightning round here as we kind of come to a close of this episode. This lightning round, we're sponsored by our companies, New Clean Commercial Cleaning and Commercial Cleaning Services. And we're talking about buying businesses. I bought a business, so, and I've started one from the beginning. And I'll tell you right now, I won't start another business. I'm going to continue to buy other businesses because it's easier to buy them than to start them. 85% of startups usually fail. It's easier to buy. That are already cash flowing. They're already rolling. So there's some unsolicited, advice and some kudos to these guys for business brokers, because it's going to make your guys' life easier, because it's so much nicer to buy something that's already cash flowing. Okay. Best book or a tool or software that you guys have recently used or read that's kind of being a game changer for you. So it can be a book or tool or software that you've consumed.
Our IBBA convention that we just got back from, International Business Brokers Association. We just spent a weekend in Florida, and the information that you gather every time you go to events like that on how you can help your clients. Just very, very insightful.
Good. I love it.
Sure,
I love conferences. There you go.
Ninja
selling. Ooh, I like it.
That's
Sell skills.
Ninja Selling by Larry Kendall.
Okay.
Kendall. This one I think is really good for anybody, right? Because we're all like, you own a business, you work for a business, whatever. Your selling is key, and he gives you some great framework and some great structures around how to be really good at selling in a natural way.
I love it. I'll add that to my list for sure. I'm reading one by, is it David or Patrick David Pat? I master his name. Is it Patrick Bet David or something like that? It's reading the next 5 moves right now, and that's been great. It's about business strategy.
The next 5 moves.
Yeah, it's it's on my. I do a lot of that on the Audible. Yeah, your next 5 moves. Patrick Bet David. Yep, phenomenal. But I'm definitely going to do the ninja buying or ninja selling. I can't remember what you said. Ninja selling. Okay, I'll get that on their list. Beautiful. All right, biggest myths business owners need to know the truth about.
That your business is worth more than you think.
Yeah. I would say that's a good, very appropriate for this episode. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Any follow-up on Tony, or was that kind of where we need to be?
I think that's probably it.
I think so. I think that's that's very solid. People, you probably see that in real estate all the time too. No, this house, it's $1 million house. No, it's not. So what's one question I should have asked that I did not ask?
I don't know that there is one at the moment for the topic that we're on. Like, we've covered a big chunk of that in a short amount of time. So,
well, good.
Yeah, I can't think of one either.
This is good. Well, people are listening to this now. They're thinking, okay, I like what Brett and Tony have to say. I've got a business, or maybe I'm looking to buy a business. I need to get a hold of these guys at Peak Business Brokers and Advisors. How do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to reach you?
My cell is 208-757-3524. That's the best way.
Yeah. You can email us at peakbizba@gmail.com. That's peakbizba@gmail.com. And my number is 208-244-4666.
I love it. I appreciate you guys coming on today. It's always great to have some guests. I'm sure people get tired of hearing solo episodes from me, so it's good to hear other people's voices.
Spencer, thanks for having us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah. No, this is definitely an informative episode, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to get a lot of good information from it. So, as we always say at the end of every one of our episodes, we always like to say, be happy, be grateful, and find opportunities to serve others. And again, thank you guys.
Congratulations on spending a couple of minutes getting a little bit smarter, having some fun, and supporting the Idaho business community. If you're feeling the love, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you are.